With a terrible taste in my mouth, I awoke from a slumber that seemed so deep I would never emerge. Having gone to bed at 1:17 a.m., and it was now only 2:47, an hour and a half of sleep had seemed infinitely longer than that, filled with twists and turns of the subconscious dream state. But now, reality was just all too real. When I say the taste in my mouth was terrible, I don't mean the standard go-for-shit breath that every middle-aged person has when they wake up. This taste was very abrasive and unusual. Not bitter, but sickeningly sweet, making me want to vomit. The closest thing I can compare it to would be the aftertaste of cheap mixed rum with some form of liquefied candy corn. My bare feet touched the cold, hard ground of my new studio apartment, and I walked past my bedroom window into the bathroom. Looking in the mirror, I opened my mouth in hopes to identify the source of the taste, only to find that my tongue was covered in white gunk, almost like plaque. Confused, I then brushed my tongue and teeth to eliminate the taste to no avail. Beginning to become restless, I went into the kitchen, opening cabinets one by one. I had my mind set on finding something to cut this terrible flavor. The best option I found was lemon juice. I began drowning it like water. Frustratingly enough, the liquid glided over the plaque on my tongue like a protective film, never even touching my taste buds. Throwing the lemon juice to the ground, I went back to the bedroom. Suddenly, all at once I was aware of a presence. A warm, throbbing, almost painful sensation came over me, almost like an external source of nerve stimuli, boldly yet calmly, letting me know I wasn't alone. It was a kind of inherent awareness that I would experience in a dream, only this wasn't a dream. My instincts directed my attention to my bedroom window, to which, almost in a trance, I then walked to and peered out of. What I saw was the visage of an owl, sitting on a tree branch. Not a screech owl or a spotted owl, but more like a barn owl if I had to guess. It was very large and almost immaculately white. For the longest time I was paralyzed, staring into its crimson saucer-like eyes. I didn't know if I was frightened or intrigued, because the animal wasn't just staring at me. It seemed to be staring relentlessly into me. After at least 4 or 5 minutes of this, the owl then, with an air of utter calm, smiled at me. Looking into its eyes, I felt strangely comforted. The very moment I broke its gaze, however, everything changed. My tongue began throbbing with the pain I can't even describe. Almost like every individual muscle inside it was tearing itself apart. I ran to the kitchen to put water into it, but it dried up like acid as soon as it touched. Panicking now, I put everything I can think of onto my tongue to help alleviate the pain. Nothing seemed to be helping, but I was determined not to give up until the pain evaded. It was 10 minutes later when the swelling began. In addition to the breathing pain that had not let up one iota, now my tongue felt like it was being inflated with air from the inside. Barely being able to close my mouth, I ran past my window again towards my bedside, and the owl was still there, smiling as big as ever. Reaching for a bottle of ibuprofen, I tried it down a handful at once, hoping it will help the swelling. I was unable to swallow though. The pill fell abruptly out of my mouth. Nothing seemed to be helping. In a complete act of desperation, I ran back into the kitchen, past the smiling owl into the silverware drawer. Opening it, I reluctantly pulled out the sharpest serrated steak knife. Holding my breath, and I punctured my tongue with the knife, hoping it would release some of the pressure. Instead, all of my muscles tightened around the knife hole, making my tongue pain increase doublefold. Reducing to flaying on the floor now, I did the only thing that a rational human being would do. I put the knife to my mouth, and I began sawing at my tongue. The pain of the blade was nothing compared to what I had been experiencing. Once my tongue was halfway severed, I paused for a second not to choke on my own blood, which was now pooling quite dramatically on the floor around me. Gagging on the knife blade, I finished the job, ripping the remainings of my tendrils in half as I yanked the wrenching thing out. Showering the floor with blood, my severed tongue laid in front of me, squirming and flapping like a fish out of water. Disgusted and mortified, I kicked it across the floor into the bedroom and closed the kitchen door so I couldn't see it. And even worse, not to hear it flapping around. Plunging my mouth with paper towels, trying desperately to maintain the bleeding, I sat crouched in the corner, suspended in shock and disbelief. As my heart rate finally slowed, I was still frozen with fear. So many thoughts were rushing through my mind, and they were almost indescribable. What the hell just happened? Is that a medical condition? Am I dreaming? What was with that owl? What? Was that an owl? Then all too suddenly, the most horrifying revelation came over me like a dark cloud. The owl that had smiled at me through the window. It was anatomically impossible for an owl to smile. Overcome with the raw sense of premortal dread, I realized the truth. It's not an owl. That's not an owl. That's not an owl! I screamed to myself. The glowing question now remained. If it wasn't an owl, what was it? I was beyond caring. I didn't want to know the truth. I didn't even want my tongue back. At the moment, all I wanted was to get away from the owl and back to safety. That was when a swooping noise broke my train of thought. Quickly, all fell silent, almost as if things were normal again. After waiting, I slowly opened the kitchen door to find that my severed tongue was gone. Approaching the bloody pool on the ground, I looked up at the window once more, which was now strangely open. Staring back at me with crimson eyes, the owl was still perched on the branch. However, it was posed to open its mouth. What happened next is beyond my realm of understanding. I knew it was impossible, yet it happened anyway. The owl opened its mouth, and with a brand new tongue, it spoke to me in an unholy voice. "I will survive," it said. Its smile had then spread wider than it had before, revealing a pearly white set of teeth. I blacked out from fear. Once I awoke, the owl was nowhere to be found. The bleeding in my mouth had clotted, and I immediately got my things together and headed to the hospital. Once I was in the emergency room, having to communicate with the pad and pencil, I informed the chief surgeon where I came from. The look of general uneasiness came over his face as he reluctantly told me that the previous tenant of my apartment came exactly 1 month prior, missing all of her teeth.